Hi students. Well, today what we're going to make is this beautiful Hammered Hearts earring and pendant set. And they are beautiful. Now, I used to teach this Hammered Hearts earring set class in my studio, but I've added a couple of steps to take it up a notch, and I've also added this beautiful pendant with the oval bail that I never did teach before. These are absolutely beautiful. The pictures are wonderful, but without actually seeing the way they reflect the light and how beautiful and shiny they are on this thick 20 gauge metal that's still very light and comfortable to wear, I wanted to show you that as well. All right, let's get started. So I have my 20 gauge silver here. I've cut one piece off with the bench shear, but I'm going to saw this one because I know most of you don't have a bench shear and need to see how I saw. So I'm going to place this on my bench pin, and then I'm going to slightly tilt my saw blade just to get a notch. There we go. Now I'm going to hold this way with my fingers behind it. You need to do what's comfortable for you, but I like this because I can turn it with my fingers, and my fingers are not in front of the blade that way. Steady strokes, use the full blade, and just take your time. Do not try to hurry this process. Let the blade do the cutting. You do not have to force forward. If you push, you run the risk of breaking your blade. I'm not even gripping the saw tightly. I'm merely pulling down and then lifting up. Now I have two pieces that are 3/4 by 1 inch. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to round the corners with my file. Now also, if where I sawed has any little bumps, because there are going to be saw marks, I'm going to file that flush as well. I'm going to put it in the notch of my bench pin to anchor it, and then I'm just going to move in a forward pattern very solidly with the blade resting right perpendicular with the piece. Until I get a nice shiny surface. So now I'm going to round my corners. I'm going to allow you to round your corners as little or as much as you wish. Continue to turn the piece and continue to the next corner. If you find that one of your corners is starting to look lopsided, maybe a little rounded on one side and then a little flat on the other, turn your piece. So if I was filing this way on this corner, I would turn it where I was filing this way and come from the opposite direction. And that would even out my curve. Filing corners can be a challenge the first few passes because the corner wants to hang in the file. But just be steady and continue on, and soon it'll be smooth. When you file, little burrs develop that are very sharp. Simply take your file find the burr and then just gently knock it off. You're not trying to file the surface of your piece, just that little burr off. And then on to the next one. going to check my corners to make sure they're all matching, and I'm also going to check them to make sure they match this piece. Even though they won't be hanging right next to each other because our ears aren't hanging right next to each other, we want them to match as closely as possible. Okay. So the very next thing we're going to do is we're going to draw our heart patterns onto our metal. Now, I could give you a pattern, but again, I want you to learn to create patterns and draw patterns. But I am insistent on one thing. These earrings need to have hearts. If you're learning to pierce, and that really is the entire purpose of this video, is to teach you piercing. A heart was chosen on purpose because it's going to show you an easy way to tackle a curve, come to a sharp point, turn, and then continue around. There's a lot to be learned in cutting out or piercing out a small heart. And these are whimsical hearts, so you do not need to worry if they are exactly perfect. And we're going to texture and hammer these pieces afterward, so they could vary a little bit anyway from that. Then if there's not quite the shape that you want, we can take little tiny half round files and flat files, and we can refine that heart shape. So what I want to encourage you to do now is on one earring, draw one heart shape, and on the other, draw two. Now, one thing to keep in mind is we want our patterns as pretty much in the center as we can get. You don't want to get too close to the edge, or you won't have enough mass or density around the heart to make the earrings stable. So for the first one, I'm going to draw my heart. Maybe I will. Just going to draw my heart in the center. So the first one's going to be a larger heart, the one it only has one. Then on this one, I'm going to draw two hearts. Now, if you're drawing your hearts and you feel like you've really messed up, just take some acetone, erase your pattern, and start again. Now that I have my patterns on there, I want to drill a hole in the very center of each heart. That will allow me to thread my saw blade through so that I can saw on the inside. So I'm going to put a little drill bit in here. I'm going to lubricate it. Place my piece on my board, anchor my hand, and drill right in the center. I'm going to do the same on both of these hearts. And I actually made those hearts kind of small, so I think I'll add a third heart. Okay. Now, in order to pierce, what we want to do is I'm going to release the bottom blade of my saw. I'm going to lift it out. I'm going to thread it through the hole. going to let it fall all the way up there so it doesn't weight my blade down. Then I'm going to rest that blade back in that rivet or in between that washer and the piece. I'm going to press and I'm going to tighten that back down. Make sure it makes a ping. Lubricate it. Now what I want you to do is I want you to position your piece so that your saw is angled toward the point of the heart. Saw on the inside of the line. Turn your piece, not your saw. Just as if you were sewing a piece of fabric. Make sure that if you're turning your metal, your saw is moving, because if your saw is not moving and you're turning your metal, it will put your blade in a bind and it will break it. Continue around the circle and head straight for the point. Now when you get to the point, what you're going to need to do in order to turn a sharp corner is you're going to saw in place, but you're going to kind of almost back your blade up a little bit. You really don't want the teeth to catch very much, just enough metal to make a way for the blade to turn. Continue moving around until your blade is completely lined up with the side of the heart. Continue around the other curve. So I did the hammered hearts earrings in a in-studio class for years. It was one of my most popular beginner classes. I'm going to do that here with you guys, but I'm going to add just a little bit of instruction just to give you guys some extra skill and technique and thoughts. And in the course of that, we're going to make a pendant as well. Now, I've gone ahead and started these two earrings, but I'm going to start from scratch on the pendant, so you won't miss a step. So first of all, our earrings are 3/4 inches . Well, that's millimeters. What do you think? 3/4 inches by 1 inch. Okay? So our pendant is also 20 gauge. It is also 3/4 inches by 2 inches. Now, just like with the earrings, we are going to draw our hearts on. And I kind of think it would be pretty to have a big heart at the bottom, then maybe a little bit smaller one, and then maybe an even smaller one. So they're kind of tumbling down the pendant. Now that one I think can be a little bit bigger, so I'm just going to flesh it out a little bit with my Sharpie. And you can do that. You can. Now if they were really bad, I would take acetone or fingernail polish remover. And I would just wipe them off and start over. Now, on the earrings, I did one big one on one side, and I actually did 3 on the little one, just something different. Now, if you wanted to vary the placement of these, that would be fine. Just don't get them too close to the edge. I would not let them get any closer than that, because then you lose some stability with the metal around it, with what we're going to do. We're going to texture, which is going to apply a lot of pressure, and then we are going to put them in the swag block and bend them. So you really do want a considerable amount of metal around the earrings, or around the hearts, excuse me, to give them some stability. So what I'm going to do now, which is also what I did on the earrings, is I'm going to drill a pilot hole in the center of each heart. I'm going to take my punch and I'm going to put a divot right in the center of each heart. Now this is a spring punch. If you have just a regular punch with a hammer, that'll work great as well. Or you can use a nail and then just tap it, but eventually the nail will bend. I'm going to lubricate just a bit, and then I'm going to drill my holes. Now I'm going to thread my saw blade through one of those holes. And that is where the term piercing comes from. We're piercing inside the metal rather than cutting around the edge. So in order to do that, we've drilled a hole, and now I'm going to start with the smallest, well actually I'm going to start with the biggest one. I'm going to thread my blade through. Make sure that as your saw is standing upright, your piece with the pattern is facing up. And then you merely thread it through. Now I'm going to tip it like that so that it doesn't pull my blade down. I'm going to press just like normal to tighten my saw blade. Now I'm going to lubricate it, and I'm going to begin sawing the heart out. Now one of the reasons I chose a heart for a beginner piercing is it's going to teach you several things, and it really is easier than you think. First of all, I want you to start going toward the point of the heart. Then we're going to go around the rounded part of the heart, and then we will stop here and I will show you how to turn a sharp corner. I am sawing on the inside of the line. That way if I make any mistakes or need to make any corrections, then I can do that with my file, and I won't have to have cut away more metal than necessary. Remember to turn your metal, not your saw, and while you're sawing and you're turning your metal, you do want your saw in motion. If you stop your saw and you turn your metal, it will put it in a bind and you risk breaking your saw blade. Now I'm going to add a bit more lubricant. I pick the entire piece up, one swipe through, and then back to my bench pin. Now I'm at the point where I need to make a turn. So what I'm going to do is basically saw in place while I'm turning my metal. I'm not moving forward though. I'm actually almost pulling back a little bit on the saw, not in an intense way, just barely, because I just want the teeth to saw out enough room to turn. So I'm going to saw in place. And turn my metal until I'm facing in the direction I need to go. Then I can move forward. And now I have a heart cut out. So now what I do is I unhook the saw blade, pull my piece off, re-thread it through the next hole, just like before. I'm going to rest it up there, put it there, press and tighten. One swipe through the lubrication, and the same process all over. And there you have it. Now do that on your earrings as well. You do not have to put 3 on that one. I just decided to because they were kind of small. But leave plenty of room up here on all 3 of them. Instead of just drilling a hole, what we're going to do is we're going to make a tiny little jump ring. We're going to fuse it to the top. Then we're going to drill our hole in the center of the jump ring to put a jump ring bail and then to put our earring wires in. So saw out all of your holes and then we will go to the next step.